What we've had in automation catalog in the past was basically you had an automation catalog item, and then you had one form and one schedule. So you could either run it manually, or you could schedule its execution with pre-filled form data. Thanks to a lot of your feedback, we've realized that that was not nearly flexible enough to really capture all of your use cases. And so we've taken a step back and basically separated the automation, which we see on the left-hand side with the automation name and its input schema and the access control for that automation. And we've completely separated that part from the actual trigger part. So triggers is a new concept in IAP 2020.2. And we have 4 types of triggers that you can add to your automation. It's API-based through a webhook. It's event-based through Kafka, through NSO netconf notifications, through internal IAP events, and others that you might integrate with. It could be scheduled, as you know, and have previously known, and manually triggered as just clicking the start button. So what that means for you, let's walk through an example. You can add an API endpoint trigger that you can completely customize. So you can tell us the name of that API endpoint. You can tell us the payload schema of that call. You can tell us if it's a get or a post call. We'll leave that completely up to you. So you have your own API editor, basically. To call, in this case, we have like F5s and workflow email to trigger this thing. So you can create your own API call. And you might ask, why is that important? What we've realized is we often replace one or more systems when we come into customers, and those systems were already integrated through API calls with some other systems. And now IAP might come into an environment where you have multiple systems that can only send a certain API call, maybe, or make a certain API call, maybe with a certain name, or definitely with a certain payload schema, and you want to use that to trigger an automation. So it has been very difficult in the past to match those two together. You have a completely different post body in your payload for your API call, and you have a completely different input schema for your automation. Instead of having to custom code or build around or change the API call, all you need to do now is create a custom API trigger, give us your payload schema, and then we'll create a JSON schema transformation for you that you just need to drag and drop which value goes where. That's a big part of our 2020.1 IAP product demo, if you haven't seen that. And without any code, without any external effort, all within our UI, you can connect a system that only has a very specific payload to an automation with a payload that might be very different. Same goes for events. We can take an event payload and transform that exactly into the input schema of your automation. We can do schema validation so that we don't even start the automation if an event is missing a field. If you have like a health error that comes from your netconf notification, and for some reason it doesn't include the device name, we're not going to even try to start that automation. We immediately tell you, hey, there was a device name missing. We couldn't start a health check for this device, as an example. So to summarize, it really builds on our closed loop story and adds a lot of value with all of those custom use cases that you might have on how you want to trigger automations in IAP.